Welcome back to the Jam Room Podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Illia.
We're here in beautiful Columbia, South Carolina, with our guest, Paisley Marie. Welcome, Paisley. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Paisley is a bassist in Homemade Haircuts. Is it Homie Haircuts or Homemade Haircuts?
It's Homemade Haircuts, but our Instagram handle is Homie Haircuts because that's what you are. If you follow us, you're a homie. You know?
Wow. I love that.
I love that. Haircut.
Also, lead singer, rhythm guitarist in the Birdwalkers.
Yes.
Fresh rebrand. That's exciting.
Yeah. For sure.
I happened to be on Instagram and I saw that. I was like, the Birdwalkers? Who is that?
It's exciting. Yeah. Also a local music teacher, somebody that's been in the Columbia scene for a very long time. Great songwriter, great musician, multi-instrumentalist. Thanks for being here, Paisley.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
We were so excited to have you. I'm personally very excited to have you. I was just like, let's go. Okay, well, we could jump in. Just kind of an easy question. What got you started as a musician? That might not be an easy question, but.
Well, so I'll kind of start with the lineage. My dad was a musician my whole life, growing up my whole childhood. He played guitar and sang and bands and would like tour on the weekends. My mom was like a heavy metal singer.
Whoa. Wow.
My grandma was like the pianist at our church for like 30 years, and my great grandma was like a voice teacher. So I don't know that I had a choice. I kind of just born into it. So I always like played music when I was very young. I had like a little toy Casio keyboard. That was like one of my first, like musical instruments. We had like a tiny little drum kit. This is actually funny. My first like real instrument that I really started playing was drums when I was a little kid, because Santa Claus brought my brother a little tiny baby drum kit, and he sat down on the throne, immediately fell off and hit his head, and was like, I don't want to do this. I hate music.
Nice.
From that day on.
Traumatized immediately.
Yeah, immediately. So I started playing drums because we had a drum kit, and my dad would like teach me really simple beats. And we actually forgot that I played drums for years and years. I don't know how that happened, but kind of a meandering story. I would mess around with guitars when I was younger. I would, we just had instruments everywhere. I was always a singer. I think that was my main thing for such a long time. I was in like chorus at school, and that's the easiest, most accessible one. Did some Hannah Montana talent show performances.
Nice.
Awesome.
So yeah, that all kind of culminated. Piano lessons, like messing around with guitars, messing around with drums, like kind of culminated when I was about 12, and I decided to start playing guitar a little more seriously and writing songs and all that stuff. And yeah, that's kind of just how it went. And yeah.
Nice.
Never looked back.
Yeah, nice. Was there like a moment that you decided you wanted to do music like professionally full time as a career?
So I think I always knew that I wanted to do that, partially because being a little kid, I was like, oh, my parents are rock stars. Like, that's what they do. I had no concept of a real job. So
Sure.
I was like, this is what adults do, is play music, and this is a job. And this
That's
is,
awesome.
I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that was my concept of it. Except for one career day. There was one career day that I like to reference because I think it's hilarious. When I was an itty bitty child, they were like, okay, kids, like, this might have been kindergarten maybe. They're like, dress up as what you want to be when you grow up. I was like, what do girls do? What are girl jobs? And I was like, pro tennis player. I was like, that's what girls do. Because I guess I had seen, like, Venus Williams or Serena Williams, like, at that age. I was like, girls play tennis and they're pros. So I want to be a pro tennis player. My parents were like, where did you, like, because I was not athletic at all. They were just like, where did you get this from? So one career day, I wanted to be a pro tennis player. And then from that moment on, it was rock star or Rapunzel. So,
Wow.
Good balance.
Yeah, good balance. Those are both jobs.
Yeah, Rapunzel is a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure how that works, but I'll take your word for it. Wow. It's interesting to think that like I feel like for a lot of musicians, there's kind of this like challenge of like believing in music as a career, but it's interesting that like sort of transition and that jump didn't have to happen for you because your parents were like, and your family was like doing music professionally already. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very different. I feel like I've always been a very goal-driven person, and in that way, I think it's made it harder for me to relate to my peers growing up because I was like, this is like, I was already doing music professionally at a very young age. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. My parents were edged on the dance mom situation a little bit. Like they were very much like pushing me to get out there and do stuff. So yeah, I don't know. In my mind, like I am like, yeah, well, 1 + 1 = 2. Like I play music, I can make money from doing that. Why would I not pursue that? Like why is everybody else struggling with this? Like just do it. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
So I can be kind of a hard head about that sometimes because I turn into like a steamroller where I'm just like, yeah, this is how we need to do this. Like, come on, guys. And everyone's like, well, financial security and other things.
Man.
And what if I want a family? And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Man.
Anyways. Yeah.
Dang. What was your first gig ever? What was your first paid gig? Do you remember it?
So when I was 12, there's kind of a fun little backstory behind this that I've told many times. So I'll try to give it a fresh spin. When I was 12, I had a friend who was taking guitar lessons. And she asked me if I would come sing at her guitar recital. And she was doing You Belong With Me by Taylor Swift. At the time, I hated Taylor Swift because I was a little punk rock kid. And I was like, everybody likes Taylor Swift. So
You're too cool
I
for
hate
that.
her. Yeah, the origins of my feminism. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, all of these girls at my school listen to Taylor Swift, so I don't like her. She asked me to learn this song. I went with her to her guitar lesson and practiced singing the song with her playing guitar. And bless her heart, guitar was not her chosen hobby or profession. She's not very good at it. And she doesn't play guitar anymore. So I think it's fine to say that. Also, we're not tight anymore. So whatever. But anyways, I was like, dang, I kind of feel like I could do that. Like I was like, that doesn't really even look like it's that hard because the song's like 4 chords. Whatever. So I went home and I asked my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, my friend low key like isn't good at guitar. I was like, I think I could be better at that because I like music. And so I asked my dad, I was like, how hard would it be for me to learn how to play this song on guitar? And he was like, well, it depends, like how badly do you want to learn it? Because if you don't care and you don't want to learn it, then it's gonna suck and you're gonna like hate it. But if you really want to learn it, it would be super easy. So he taught me 4 chords and capo, and that is my origin story of starting music professionally and also loving Taylor Swift. From that moment on, hyper intense focus on, I would go into my room every day after school, shut the door, put on the Fearless album by Taylor Swift and use those 4 chords and move a capo around, and I would just figure out every song by ear and just sing them and play them. And then I would start the album over and I would do it again. And then I would start the album over and I would do it again. And that is all I did for months. And my dad, this was like right after my 12th birthday. So I just turned 12. And my dad asked me, I think around May, so like March and then April, so for like 2 months, that was all I did. And I like had a little performance at my school where I got up and everyone's like, wow, that was so good. How long have you been playing guitar? And I'm like, 2 months. And they're like, what? But I'd messed around with guitars before, but I never like wanted to play one. It was like, I'm making some noise. So that I full-heartedly just like did not care about anything else. And my dad brought me to an open mic night 2 months after I started playing guitar at the now closed Hard Knocks Grill. Used to be a bar, music venue. Yeah, R.I.P. And so I went to the open mic night and I played like 2 Taylor Swift songs. And then the owner, Pete, was a friend of my dad's, and he also was like, wow, you're actually not that bad. They booked me a gig in July. So I started playing guitar in March, open mic night in May, and then they booked me a gig in July. And they were like, you can come open the show. It was like a 5-band bill. So there was like, they let me go on like really early. There were like not a lot of people there. It was like my first gig. And my dad was like, if you're going to play this gig, you have to be ready. He was like, you have to have a set list. And he was like, you have to practice your set list every day or I'm going to cancel the gig, which was very intense of him. Ooh. He's very, very intense person, but very well-meaning because he was like, you don't want to get up there and embarrass yourself. You know, in a way, he's like, I don't want this to like ruin like music for her if she gets up there and bombs. So he was like, if you practice your set every day, then you'll be able to do the gig. So, and you know, it was also summer too. So it was like, what am I doing all day? Just sitting around. So I did that, practiced my set every day. I had like 2 original songs that I had written, and I played the gig, and it never really stopped. And because my dad was, you know, in the music scene, he was like, do you want to play more gigs? And I was like, yeah, that was awesome. I want to do this. Like, of course I do. I want to be like Taylor Swift. So he would kind of help me book shows at like local restaurants or places like that. And it got to one point where when I was in middle school, I guess like 8th grade, I found a little flyer where I had like maybe like 8 gigs in a month, like at the age of like 13 or 14.
Dang.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
So I very much was like doing it. And I recorded an album when I was 13 because I wrote like 7 original songs.
Wow.
Dang.
So and you know, there was lots of assistance. I do think it's important to say that I don't think I would have like done that had my parents not had the means of understanding like how to make that happen and how to help me do that. But I went in and I recorded like 7 original songs when I was like 12, or released the album when I was 13. And like all of that was within like a year of me even starting to play guitar.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So it very much like hit the ground running. And I was playing like 3-hour cover gigs when I was a little bit older, just like covering the whole night. And it got to a certain point where as a teenager, I had like other life things going on, you know? So I was like, I don't really want to play cover gigs anymore at bars because it was weird. Like none of my friends would go because it would be a bar, and like I would just be around like older people all the time. So yeah, I started playing drums for fun after that, which was kind of a surprise to everybody around me, because we had forgotten that I played drums when I was a little kid. So I like picked up the drums and started playing drums in a band in high school, and started playing gigs on drums. And that was kind of a interesting little side quest that I did. Yeah, and then I didn't actually start playing bass until I'd kind of messed around with it, but some friends of mine in Bull Moose Party, they needed a bass
Shout out.
player. Yeah, shout out Ian and Ben, 2 of my best friends. Their bass player left, and I knew them both, and I came up to them, and I was already a fan of the band, and I was like, I'm your new bass player. And I swear to God, I was like, I'm your new bass player. And they were like, oh, cool, yeah, you want to like come to a practice? And I was like, trust me, I am buying a bass amp. I'm your bass player. Like, I just really liked their music, and we were friends, and I was like, I want to be in a band. So yeah, that is what the origin of the bass story is.
Oh my gosh.
Dang.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah.
That's
I don't
wild.
know.
Dude, I remember seeing Bull Moose Party. Like, I know I saw you guys at least once or twice, just like when I was probably like high school or something like that. And because my brother was really good friends with Ben Campbell at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can remember just like being around Ben and being like, yo, that guy's so cool.
Dude, I was scared of Ben when I first met him because he's a very quiet person. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's so intimidating. And then now that we're like best friends, I'm like, he's just not thinking about anything. I'm just kidding. I love Ben.
Hilarious. That's super funny.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Important question.
Yes.
That album you recorded when you were 13.
Yes.
Is it still out there?
Oh,
Is it on
God.
Spotify?
It's not on Spotify. It's on iTunes.
Wow.
You can buy it
Vintage.
if you want to listen.
Oh, my gosh.
Dang.
What's it called?
Oh, man. It's called 3 More Miles to Go
Nice.
Wow.
by Paisley Marie.
Nice.
And I recorded it when I was 12, so don't judge me. But yeah,
That's wild.
That is amazing.
that's really, funny story.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Well, so you went from Bull Moose Party to, did you have anything after? I guess I'm like, what's the timeline between that and like the
Yeah.
Birdwalkers?
Well, you know, because
Yeah.
I've always wanted to form an all-girl band. Like, I tried to with my friends in high school. It didn't really pan out. I tried to, like, kind of in college, and it didn't really pan out. Like, I had, like, jammed and tried to, like, get, like, a bunch of girl musicians in a room together and start something multiple times. And it never really panned out. And one time, we were, like, it was me and Laurel and you and my friend Emily, and we were all going to get together and jam and play some songs. And I think we all just kind of like had other ideas, and that just never really like solidified as a project. But out of that, me and Laurel started playing some of my original songs, and then we found Katie, who plays bass with us, and it just turned into something really, I know this sounds so cheesy. It turned into something very magical. And like I just had a lot of songs that I had already had written and wanted to have a band play them. So that's why we started off as Paisley and the Birdwalkers, because it was my original songs. And then lately we kind of have this plan to do a little bit of everybody's original songs. And so we were like, you know what, we should drop the Paisley and just call it the Birdwalkers, since everybody's going to be, you know, doing some of their music now. So that's not fair to like have my name on it, which I don't even really care about. We just kind of did that because it was like, well, people already know my name and I want them to know that like this is my project. So, but yeah, that has been something very special that I've been so happy to be a part of. And somewhere in there, Blake asked me to fill in on bass with Homemade Haircuts for a show. And then I filled in on a few more shows. And then they were like, do you want to be our bass player? And I was like, yeah, I do. So that's how that happened. And now those guys are all like my best friends in the world. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's not cheesy at all to say that's like a magical thing. Like I think that's really wonderful. And like when you find a group of people that you really just like, that really means something to you, and you're doing something that's really meaningful, like that is magical. That's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted to ask you kind of like, what's the difference in experience there? Because in the Birdwalkers, you're kind of like, at least for a while, you were kind of like the front person, lead guitar player, I would say. And then in Homemade Haircuts, you're the bass player. So kind of, I would imagine there's a different like mindset for each of those things. And I kind of wanted to dive into that. And like, I don't know, you write a lot of the music for the Birdwalkers, and then I know that you've written some bass parts for Homemade Haircuts as well. And I kind of want to like, I don't know, what's the thought process there? What's different for those two roles for you?
Yeah, well, my background had always been, you know, very singer-songwriter-esque. So doing the Birdwalkers, especially at first, a little bit different now, was me bringing a lot of my already mostly or fully written songs in and being like, here are the parts, like, here's what I think I want the drums to do, here's what I think I want the bass to do. And just kind of having a song that was mostly fleshed out already in my mind. So with being the front person, and especially with being the singer, there's a lot more pressure because voices are the most finicky thing like ever.
Yes.
Like I think a lot of instrumentalists don't understand, and there's like all kinds of jokes about like, oh, the singer, like whatever. But like it's a part of your body. It feels
It's your whole body.
Yeah, it's your whole body. It's like if you don't get enough sleep the night before, like, oops, like
That's
it's
it.
gone, you know, like, yeah. So that is one of the bigger differences that I think about, is just not having to sing as much in Homemade Haircuts is quite the burden being taken off of my shoulders, which I sing some of that band. I sing like harmony vocals, and every now and then I'll sing lead on a song. But whenever I joined Homemade Haircuts, I had never written a lot of bass parts. Like I'd written bass parts to my own songs, but not as much from the mindset of a bass player, which is funny now because I feel like bass is one of my more comfortable instruments because we've just played so many shows and I've like done that way more lately. But like writing a bass part for Homemade Haircuts has this much more creative expression that like when you have a fully finished song and you're just kind of sticking a bass part underneath it, like all the space is already kind of filled and you don't really get to, you know, do as much stuff as you might be able to if you had, you know, a little more creativity, room for that in there. So with Homemade Haircuts, there's definitely more of an indie rock vibe. Yeah, so bass parts for Homemade Haircuts, more of an indie rock vibe. There's definitely a lot more room to play around with what I'm doing. And I really do take pride in being a bass player now. That's not something I ever really thought that I would be, given my beginnings in music. But I really like being a part of a team. And being a bass player feels more like that than being the front person. I kind of struggle with the dynamics of being a front person or like being in charge. It's like, I think being a leader is kind of tough when you're like trying to tell your friends what to do. Like there can definitely be some weird, you know, just artistic things that crop up
Sure.
because of that. Whereas with Homemade Haircuts, it feels more like a team. And Bob does most of the songwriting for that, but Bob and Blake collectively wrote a lot of the songs on that last album with Evan, our old guitar player. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels more collaborative, which I'm learning to really enjoy and appreciate as somebody who spent a lot of time as a solo artist.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you guys went on tour, right? Like recently?
Yeah, we've done a couple of different little tours. The first, tour and the longest one that we did was in June. We were out for 10 days, and I think we played 8 shows.
Nice.
That sounds right. Yeah. So we had a day off in the middle and a day off towards the end. But yeah, we played up through Virginia, did a lot of North Carolina dates. We played in Tennessee. And then we did a July tour, but that was a little more of us driving to each show.
Sure.
Even though it was consecutive, we played at the Georgia Theater in Athens, which was really cool.
It's awesome.
Such a cool venue with our friends Lighthearted. So yeah, we played that show, and then we played another show right after that. I can't remember where. And then it was Monday we had off, and then Tuesday we played in Charlotte, and then Wednesday it was Greenville. So we were just kind of driving, get off work at 7 o'clock, drive to Charlotte, play a show, drive home, the next day go to work, get off work, drive to Greenville, drive back home.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Up in there for sure. What were some some surprising things that you experienced when you were on tour? What are some things that you didn't expect? What advice could you give younger original bands that want to start touring, that kind of thing?
Yeah. The biggest thing that I have gathered from being in Homemade Haircuts in general, but being on the road with them and being in a van together, is being prepared and organized. I've always been I think overly prepared or overly organized to the point of paranoia. But
Sure.
But I think that I've learned how much that helps, and I've witnessed other bands that we've either toured with or played with, and there's just a chaos there with all the details that have to be followed.
Sure.
And I think the more organized and structured and planned you can be, the better. Especially when it comes to if you're on the road and God, oh my God, I sound so silly. If you're on the road and blah, blah, it's just spending a lot of time in a car with people. Think of how chaotic family road trips can be. You need to plan time where you're okay, everybody's gonna go F off for an hour, and we're not gonna talk to each other, and it's gonna be fine. We love you, but
you
everybody's gonna
decompress.
do their own thing. Yeah. So I think just understanding that there are going to be lots of things like that, not expecting not expecting everybody to be in a good mood the whole time, not expecting everything to go well, just trying to be as organized and prepared as you can be. Because especially, you have no idea a lot of times where you're going to be staying or what's going to be there. And it's are we sleeping on a floor? I brought my sleeping pad and my camping sleeping pad and my sleeping bag, and used it. I've used it a lot. Sometimes we would stay in hotels, but most of the time it would be on a friend's couch or on the floor. So yeah, just being prepared for anything. I always say it feels like camping.
I believe that.
Because you I don't know what we're gonna run into. I don't know what food we're gonna eat. I don't know. So yeah, I would say being very prepared. But because it feels like camping, it's very fun. There's lots of memories. There's lots of
Sure.
oh my God, we all struggled through this thing together, and now we are bonded through it. I always say it feels like summer camp. So yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Wow. What so on that tour, what was your favorite show that you played? And then what was the most sort of nightmarish situation that you experienced while you're touring? I'm curious.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. I'll just say over the last few months, we've done a couple of mini tours. So I think my favorite show that we played out of any of them, the Georgia Theater show was just really special to me, because that was just a moment where I'm I'm playing a big venue in another city where I don't know anybody.
That's
to
awesome.
go to another city, and we got hooked up with that opportunity because we had friends there and we had played with them before and kind of traded shows, that sort of thing, connections and community. But just, I don't know, that was kind of a cool full circle moment for me, being wow, like this is possible and I'm doing it. And hell yeah. So that moment, that was great.
Cool. Were y'all opening for someone, or was it like y'all show? Like
It wasn't our show. We were opening for Lighthearted. They're from Athens,
Gotcha.
and it was I think their album release show.
Cool.
Nice. So it was like all local Athens bands, which was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it was just very good vibes at that show. Everybody there kind of knew each other and just very community sort of vibe. But it was like a community that like I'm not a part of. So it was just cool to witness that, like to be kind of thrown into like a whole other city's like, who's who of like who lives there and plays there. And that was really cool. Observed a lot at that show. And then the worst show, for me personally, we played a show in Boone, North Carolina. And it was an amazing show in terms of the people. The audience was great. We played at this cool little spot called the Tap Room. Like everything about it was great. It was just in the middle of the first tour that I had ever done. And I got really homesick the night before. And I was also probably like PMSing or something. But like, I was just like, I cried like the night before that. And I was like, oh, I like miss my bed. And I'm just like, want to go home or whatever. And then the next day I just, I had like 3 drinks and they were called Bodie McBoatface drinks. And I had 3 Bodie McBoatface drinks. And I don't really drink very much. So like 3 drinks for me is probably equivalent to like 10 for somebody else. So I just like don't remember that show. I played it and I was on stage. And my feet hurt really bad for some reason. So I wore like Birkenstocks on stage, which is just weird for me. Like I'm not an open-toed shoe person on stage. That I don't know. So I was like, oh, dude, I don't want to be here right now. But the audience was so good. And the band we played with was so good. Like it was like everything good was happening around me. I just was not in a good place. And then like pulled it together the next day and everything was great. I'm like, we're on tour.
Nice.
So yeah, that one particular night I was like, this is what they mean when they say you're missing home on the road or whatever. It was my like road dog moment after like 4 days of being away from home. Like
that's crazy.
Oh my god.
I feel like it's definitely like, and this might just be terrible, but take this with a grain of salt. I feel like it's definitely like possible to have like a little bit of like drinks or alcohol like while you're playing a show, but like I don't think you can ever escape those moments where you're like, you take a drink like of like an IPA or something, and it's like, oh, this is 8%, and I haven't eaten since 10 a.m.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's the
I
worst.
should have been more careful about this.
That like on stage realization of like, maybe had a little bit too much.
Yeah, that definitely is unavoidable for sure.
I don't drink very much, but when I do, I have a tell, I think, on stage is that, like, I do way more hair flips, I think, when I'm drunk.
That's really
like,
funny.
I think I'm just like, and just, like, flip my hair back. I do that a lot anyways. I'm probably going to hurt myself because of it. I always have really bad neck pain.
It's so fun,
my
though.
boyfriend's like, stop headbanging. And I'm like, I can't.
No.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Wow.
No, it's too much fun. I agree.
It's so fun. Especially like being I was a bass player for a long time before I started playing guitar with the Sam and Illia stuff. Mm-hmm. Like moving a lot as a bass, like there's 2 kinds of bass. There's bass players that just like statue, love the guy to death, and this isn't like a bad thing. Rodney is that guy. Doesn't move a lot.
Rodney's
that's fine.
so chill.
You and Rodney are both killer bass players.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But like I'm the kind of bass player that's like moving as much as I possibly can. I bought a wireless unit, installed it on the pedal board just so I could like move more, and it's like my favorite part of playing bass.
That's a good idea.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Shure
been trying to get me into
GLX-D 16 Plus. Great wireless unit. Highly recommend.
And yet you never walk around the bar with it.
I'm not.
You gotta get off the stage and walk around.
I've really thought about it. And I have seen people that do that, and I think it's kind of cheesy, if I'm being honest. I think the guy that did that knows what I'm referring to, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to name any names. It was kind of cheesy, man.
With the hot takes.
Like, I don't know. I feel like you can do it tastefully, but I've never seen it done tastefully, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
Anyways.
Yeah, you're just like the stand on the sub kind of bass player.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Absolutely
Yeah.
will.
I've done that before.
This is like the astrology of musicians. Like, where do you stand on stage?
Where do you
Tag
align?
yourself.
Are you like foot up on the kick drum? Are you like...
Foot on the stage monitor. I know Jared Wise.
Oh, he's a foot on the stage
Oh,
monitor?
he's a foot on the stage monitor
definitely.
and like shred. Yeah, love that guy. Shout out Jared. Okay, Well, should we take a quick break for ads?
A little quick ad break.
In case we can find ads in the next 7 days, shout out. You can advertise on this podcast for very cheap. Hit us up. All right. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around during the ad break. Shout out to our sponsors if we find some in the next 7 days.
This guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's our
that's
Little
our
Guy
sponsor.
is our sponsor
Yeah.
today.
Little guy.
Paisley brought that with her.
Pronouns are he, it, little guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny.
All right. Well, the last thing I really wanted to dive into, just because I know you and I personally have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
I know that you're very passionate about women in music and like representing women in music and platforming women in music. And I kind of just wanted to get some information on like your general experience and like why it's so important to you to surround yourself with other women and to platform them and all that.
In general, I just love so much when I see like talented like women artists. I think that like that that jealousy thing that like some people feel and don't know how to manage, I will be like, wow, she's so good. Oh my God, I want to be her best friend. Like, can we be in a band together? Like, it's like, come here. Like, so I think that for me, like, I get so excited. I come on very strong. I think I scare some people off. Or I'm like, "You're a really good girl musician. Do you want to play shows with? Should we play music together?" So part of it is just my own love for just talented women because, like. When I see really talented women, like in my mind, I immediately think of all like the BS that like I've had to go through. And I'm like, God, like they probably went through all that same stuff and like, look at how good they're doing. And like, I don't know, it's just like a courage thing where I'm like, wow, like that's so cool. And like in the day and age that we're in, I feel like there's a lot of commentary about like, well, there's so many women artists who are like so big, like is that really even like a thing anymore? Like it doesn't even really matter. But one of the bigger issues that I've experienced is not even as much with women artists, but like every other position that it takes to put a show together or booking shows or running sound or producers or engineers. It's like every other facet of it other than just being like the front pretty person who just plays. It's like background roles like drummers or bassists. It's like I feel like there are lots of women who are like solo artists or like front people, almost like the trope of like girl singer sort of thing. Like there are a lot of people like that. But I just get so excited by the potential for, like, cause when you walk in a room, like I played a show one time, walked in a room, it's like all the door guys, are men, all the sound crew, men, stage crew, men, every band was all guys. I was the only girl in the room. Like it was like set up at this like big show. And I was the only woman there. It was like all the bartenders, guys. I was like, if this was reversed, like if there was one guy and it was all women, like that would never happen. Like, could you even think of a venue where that would ever happen?
Yeah.
Like that they would be like, oh, this is like a different sort of venue. It's like
it's
that
immediately
would be
a stigma.
Weird. Yeah, that would be weird. So like it's hard not to feel unwelcome, even if there is an invitation. This is something that I've talked with my boyfriend about a lot before too, because he's involved with skateboarding, and there's like not as much, there's not as many like women skateboarders, and that's also a conversation in that industry. And I think it's one thing if the invitation is there, where it's like, yes, like we want more women to come, and like, but it's like if you're going to show up and you're going to be the only woman, does it feel inviting? Like, yes, there's an invitation, but like there's not going to be the same sort of camaraderie or mutual respect or mutual understanding. And sometimes you get really lucky, and like with Homemade Haircuts, I love those guys so much. Like they have never made me feel lesser than, like, so it's definitely not like oh, I'm in a room with all guys and like I feel like weird about it, but it just happens so often that it just gets like just irritating. It gets irritating. And then that's without even getting into like the darker side of it, which is harassment, or like, you know, anything like that, which I've also had to deal with. Like, I've had to get people fired because they talk to me inappropriately and stuff. And it just like sucks because, I talked to the Free Times recently about this too, and they put a quote in there where I was like, oh my God, I said that? Wow. That was a good quote. I'm going to say it again. You know, like, you don't want to think about that stuff. You just want to be like, I'm a girl and I make music, whatever. Like, I don't want to worry about anything else. It literally does not matter. But you still encounter it. So, you, like, I don't know. It's like you have to live in reality. I feel like people who are like, oh, just ignore it. Like, okay, so you want me to be delusional. Like, you want me to live my life in delusion, because it's real. And, you know, like, even a lot of times too, you know, there's a quote that that I've heard before about different things. It's been used about different things, but I agree with this, where it's like, you know, anytime, like, let's talk about like sound engineer, right? Because we're at the jam room. Like you can think about, yeah, well, guys maybe are sound engineers more often because they're just better at it. Like, there's not a lot of girls who are like good at it. But it's like, think about all the guys who suck at it, who are still doing it. And it's like,
It's a great point.
there's like, whenever there's like equality within this industry, it's like there will also be a lot of women who suck at it, who are still able to do it, you know, like at the same level.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And it's just crazy because, like, I don't ever think that, you know, because somebody is a woman that they're, you know, like, deserve a spot more. But I do think that, like, there has to be a bigger sense of welcoming and invitation to make up for that lack of other women, like, being around. So, you know, it's like, if you're, I could say so many things. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it right there for now.
Well, I like what you're saying about, like, you know, you don't have to be the best at it. And I think that's something that can be really, really intimidating in so many spaces, is like, I don't feel like I'm the best at this thing and I can't, like, compare to, like, my male counterpart. So it's like, I don't even want to be a part of it. But, like, you need a space where you can get better. That's what they had.
Yes.
You know, they had a space where they can grow and get better, and someone can tell them, hey, you're not doing this. Like, you're not, like, you need to work on this, and this, you know? And, like, I want to be told the same thing. And I want to be given the opportunity to do the same thing. And I think about that a lot when I meet other women who are, like, just starting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I want to provide you with something, or, like, I need someone to provide you with something where, like, you can, like, grow as a musician. Because otherwise, how are you supposed to do it? It's like, you're supposed to pop up all of a sudden as, like, the best ever. And and like you're saying, in, like, a front person role, or in like, no, that's so important and valuable. And that's why I really love, you know, you were talking earlier about how we at some point got together and were jamming, and, like, that really did change my perspective a lot on what it meant to be a part of a band, and what I was lacking as a band member, and what I really wanted to be able to work on. And still every day I'm learning about things that I need to just, like how to be a better musician in general. But that was the first time I'd ever been in a room with just women. And I hadn't thought about that before. I hadn't thought, like, wow, and, like, not that it's a bad thing to be around dudes, but, like, that was the first time that I ever had that kind of in my face. And I'm like, no, this is really special and important, and is something that needs to be, like, treasured.
And there's, like, a barrier that is erased. And, you know, like, people who are going to be assholes about it, they're going to be regardless. But, like, when it's all women, people ask me, like, what's so much different about, like, working with all women versus, like, all guys? It's like, maybe it's a me thing, but, like, I'm not constantly, like, analyzing every interaction for danger or for, like, inappropriateness, or, like, it's like, I don't have to be on my guard. And so then I can just not worry about it, which is what everybody says, right? Oh, well, just forget about it. Like, just don't think about it. And it's like, you don't understand what it means to, like, because that's the other thing, right? Is that, like, if somebody says some, like, off-color thing to you that's, like, offensive, then everybody's like, well, like, did you invite it? Or, so it's
did you interpret that wrong?
Yeah,
Did you
constantly are just having to analyze or interpret social interactions through a different lens, which just takes more energy and it takes your attention away from the thing that you want to be doing. So it's like if you're friends with like with homemade haircuts, like I don't have any of that, right? Like so because I know them so well, they're my best friends. But a lot of times in many interactions, it's like I cannot tell you, especially when I was younger, this used to happen a lot and it used to make me very angry. I would have people who I thought were my friends who were like guy musicians. I'd be like, yeah, we're friends. Like, he's a guitar player. Like, I'm a guitar player. Like, whatever. Like, inevitably, every time, if there was ever an invitation to hang out or to jam or anything like that, there was always an ulterior motive, which is like, yeah, whatever. Like, people date each other. People, ask each other out. Whatever. But, like, it just gets so tiring because it just adds to that thought that, like, you have to be the one looking out and interpreting and, like, trying to navigate these relationships versus just, like, I'm a musician. I'm here to play. Like,
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, I know you had another question actually, so I wanted you to.
What can men do to like help promote good spaces and like women in music?
I have to be honest. There's a friend of mine who I think does this very well. Tyler Gordon from Hillmouse. He consistently invites like women musicians, like Emily McCullum plays with him in Hillmouse.
She's great. Super talented.
Yeah, she's awesome. And, I've played bass with them. Like, I think specifically seeking out women, like, to give them a chance, like, and, like, kind of thinking outside your circle a little bit, instead of being like, well, all my buddies are guys and they all play, like, let me maybe step outside of that a little bit and give somebody a chance. Because there's somebody I might not have thought of.
Sure.
And maybe that's, figuring out through your own biases. Like, am I keeping people out because they're women and because they're not like my best guy friend or whatever, But yeah, I would say that that's a big one. Just like extending if you need somebody on a gig or if somebody's like, hey, who's another band that can play? Like any of those things. And also just in general, just like, I think this is a good rule anywhere, but just like don't hit on people when they're working. And like I know that like being a musician, you're a lot of times at a bar and people are drinking, but you're working. It's like I cannot tell you like how much harassment and just BS you have to deal with. And you're like, this is my job. Can you guys just not be weird about it? Like,
Yeah.
That's just like the biggest one, I think.
Yeah, I get hit on a lot of gigs. Just kidding.
Okay. I believe it.
Thank you. It's helpful when you're dating the person you're always playing gigs with. It kind of just reduces that risk and frustration. Okay, quick.
Yes.
So we're going to ask you one more quick question.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Ask every single person.
We have to finish out. Oh, sorry.
Before that, what do you have to promote?
Yeah.
What do I have to promote? So I am in a band, Homemade Haircuts. I'm in a band called the Birdwalkers. I teach music lessons if you want to hit me up, anything like that. I do music full time also as a solo artist. So if anybody needs anything like that, I am everywhere all the time. So just find me. Yeah.
Where can they find you on social media?
My social media is at Paisley Marie Music. That's on Facebook and Instagram. And our website for the Birdwalkers is paisleyandthebirdwalkers.com. And then I think for Homemade Haircuts, it's homemadehaircuts.com. I think.
Got the domain.
Not sure.
Wow.
Nice.
Not sure.
Cool. Well,
all right. Well, then,
can I ask a question?
You can ask.
Okay,
I've asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you today.
We end every podcast by asking our guests what their favorite coffee is in Columbia, what their favorite meal is in Columbia, and then where they're hanging out, grabbing a drink, if they're into that, on a typical, night off on the town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I prepared for this question because I am a listener of the podcast.
Oh, wow.
My favorite place to get coffee in town is Peacewise Coffee.
Nice.
They have my favorite coffee of anybody.
What's the order? Yeah, sorry, you were about to say that.
Just oat milk latte. No sweetener.
Classic.
Just I like the taste of coffee. Like
Nice.
I want to taste the coffee. So oat milk latte. That's my order. My favorite place to eat in Columbia is Piece of Soul, the vegan restaurant. I don't know if you guys have been there. It is so freaking good. They have everything is vegan, which I'm a big fan of. I'm not vegan, but I love to eat vegan and vegetarian when I can. And yeah, they have different food every day. So the menu kind of rotates, but their macaroni and cheese, so good.
I try that.
Favorite.
Okay.
Also, honorable mention to Mai Tai in West Columbia. Their tofu amazing is the name of the dish that I always get. That's my favorite food of all time. Like anywhere, anything. It's like a peanut tofu. Okay.
Awesome.
A place to get a drink. I am going to say New Brooklyn because I love those people there so much. I feel so safe there. That is like my comfort spot for anything nightlife. And my favorite drink to get is Leah always makes me a drink there, and it's called the Leah.
Yes.
It's
So
called
good.
the Leah.
So good.
We get it
We
like
love the
every
Leah.
time we're there
Yes.
because of you.
Yeah. That's so good.
Dude, thank you, Leah. I hope she hears
Thank you,
this.
Leah.
It's Malibu rum, cranberry juice, and a splash of lime juice. And it does not
delicious.
taste like alcohol,
So
which
tasty.
I love. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, Paisley, thanks for being here on the
Thank
Jam Room
you.
Podcast.
Guys.
Check us out online. It's at Jam Room Cast for this podcast. It's at Jam Room Studio.
For the jam room.
For the Jam Room, it's at Sam and Illia. For us, we play events, weddings, all kind of stuff. Cover stuff around Columbia. Thanks
so
for
does
listening. Yeah. Yeah. See y'all next time.